Here we've got this Expedition that we actually retrofitted a few years ago now. It's got the G5 BRT, got the full gloss black housings, amber delete, diode dynamics, halos. Everything's working amazing. Customer picked up a rental property pretty far out in the sticks, outside of Pittsburgh somewhere, and could use some extra lighting. So while the front end is off, customer got a new grille, some accents, and the goal is to put a diode dynamics light bar and SS3 pods in this area in the bumper, in this lower slot and that lower center area of on top of the license plate frame. Now, typically we tend to shy away from these kind of installs, but people on the Expedition forums have been doing it, so we know it's possible. My biggest fear as an installer is somebody has a crazy plan, we take off the bumper cover, we start mounting things up, and we find out it doesn't fit. So try not to waste anybody's time. We're not going to dive into a install and then be on the hook for a few hours of labor when nothing was accomplished. So in this case, we have confirmation that it works, and we're going to entertain the customer's idea. We're installing a few switches, one for the light bar, one for the pods, and one for a reverse light bar as well. We got the Moroto backup boost, and in the future, the customer plans to add some SS3 flush mount pods. So we'll be actually installing 3 provided rocker switches. There's a lot of work to do on this thing. It's probably gonna be about a half day, maybe a little bit more of an installation. So I'll keep you posted throughout the process, show you what I'm doing. I think it'll look really good with the new Raptor style grill. We got the marker lights. We've got some lower grill on the bottom. Show you how everything looks. And yeah, just keep you posted along the process, but stay tuned and we'll get right into it. Okay, a little over 2 hours in at this point. We needed to do a few other things. I needed to change out the bulbs, the switchback bulbs, change out the DTS bulbs, and honestly just mocking up this whole setup. Because there is no vehicle specific mounting kit, just going off of based of what people have done. You know, it kind of spaced out the pod down with washers, but it's not as low as I'd like it to go, but it'll just clear. Now the top light bar there is sitting a little bit too low. I need to space that upward pretty significantly. So I'm hoping to get another 1/2 inch with some spacing, and that'll get it centered in the grill area and come to an acceptable point. Had to transfer over some things on the new grill, which looks awesome. And yeah, just keep you updated here. Okay, it's hard to believe, but I'm about 4.5 hours into this install. A lot of test fitting, a lot of back and forth. Ended up having to space the diode dynamics light bar up and the pods down. Just got creative. I didn't have any special brackets or anything. Used a combination of spacers. It's pretty solid. You know, we don't recommend mounting on a piece of plastic. This will solidify once the bumper is on. But overall, this came out pretty cool. I just aligned everything. It's important to note that you should be aligning, making sure you have full alignment, full adjustment before you put your bumper cover back on. It's going to be very difficult to align this later on. So it's important to align any kind of pods or light bar that is hard to access later. This is kind of behind the bumper. Fogs you can move, but the light bar is more difficult, so I got that set up properly. I've got 3 relay harnesses, daytime running lights. We have a daytime running light for the retrofit for the halos, so those are on with the ignition. The back lights will be wired to the same daytime running light source. And the customer wants the fogs pre-wired to the factory, setup. So we'll be using an extension and a diode to power up the relay harness. This engine bay is quite, it's actually pretty big, but it's actually quite tight where you kind of need it. I've got all 3 relays kind of mounted up right here, going to the battery, and kind of routing everything right now. So marker lights will be tied into that switch power source. Test fitted that grill. Everything works well, just a lot of back and forth. I'm running a line to the rear of the truck because the boost bar will be on its own switch as well. Also tied into the factory reverse light wiring, but the customer wants to add some pods back there in the future, so we want to set it up with a relay harness. And got the switches ready to go. Customer got a switch plate set up. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all works out. There's still a little bit more to do, but just getting everything set up right now. So here we are. Okay, so this is the fun part. Custom switches means we're not using any of the switches that come on the harnesses. I'm simply feeding in a trigger line, okay, for each harness, and they'll be color coded. I'm also feeding in a switch power source, which we have in the front that we're using. And all of these have to run through the firewall, right to the back of each switch. So I just pushed it through. It's not easy. And they're color coded, so I'll be able to kind of custom wire everything over here, tuck everything away in a moment. But yeah, it's quite a job. But front bumper's back on, light bar, fogs, everything's tested. Before you get to this point, you obviously want to test everything, make sure everything works. All right, success. So again, this already had a daytime running light circuit hooked up for the Diode Dynamics halos. Ran up the wiring for the backlight along with the new marker lights. The front end is done. There's still definitely a few more hours of work on the interior and on the back. Got the relays, grounds, battery connections, everything's running under here. And then it's connecting to those wires that I ran through the firewall. Put some lube on there, zip tied it off to the side. And now each individual connection is in the car waiting for the wiring. I'll show you how all the switches look mounted later on in the video. There's a switch power line and 3 separate switch lines. So both of the work is done. Just need to make some connections and some hookups on these switches. But the front end is all set. So yeah, it looks really good. Everything is working properly, so can't wait to see it all wrapped up in a little bit, and I'll show you the output. All right, I'm onto the rocker switches. I've got the wiring ran into the vehicle. If you recall, used 3 separate wires for the 3 separate circuits plus a switch power line. Each one of those wires was color coded, and I'm reusing the same colors on this side. That way when we go to join it, it's all set up. But I can set this up on the bench. This rocker switch diagram is pretty straightforward. We got ground. This is connect to your battery source. Now, you can use full-time power. You can use switch power. I'm using switch power because I believe that these circuits should turn off. You don't want to forget to turn off your light bar or fog lights. It's just going to drain your battery. Even though it'd be hard to forget about that, you can see it on. It's better on a switch power source, in my opinion, unless you're doing some kind of overlanding or need a reason to keep the lights on with the vehicle off, but just realize it can drain your battery. So that's actually a switch power source. Number 3 is your trigger, essentially. It connects to the relay system, and each one of those wires is color coded. So you can see I've got a yellow and a red one, blue and white, and finally a pink. And they all have a red and white wire, which is our switch power source, and each one of them has a ground. So I'll be able to join everything right from the back. And now I can pop these in, wire it first, test it, but essentially these connections are left just to hook up at this point. But use some female spade connectors, and this can go in. And now that it's color coded, I'll put on connections at the end of it. It's going to be disconnectable. It's fully set up. Here we've got the Moroto boost bar installed. Small hole is drilled right under here. It comes with a waterproof grommet. Hatch is taken apart. Here's that grommet right there. I'll put some silicone. The wiring has to feed over. All these zip ties obviously will be cut. It comes up and it's got to go. The proper way to do it is to get it through the grommet here. And then honestly, it can just kind of lay exposed. You don't want a wire kind of crossing over on this. It's going to create a bad seal and water is going to get in your trunk lid. The wiring feeds down into here, and this wire ran all the way from the front from the extra set of relay harnesses On the switch, the customer wanted the backup lighting on a switch, essentially an override, but he also wants it activated with the factory turn signal, reverse wiring. So it's pretty straightforward. You locate the reverse, which is this purple and black line, and you feed it, you trace it back to the plug, and on the plug, actually it happened to be the green wire, use the posi tap. I have a diode set up here, so it's gonna flow one way, and it will activate the light bar, the boost bar to come on. Later on, we'll be installing some SS3 pods, customer said in a few months. So the wiring is all set up. It runs from the front to the rear, following the frame and some lines that come to the rear. It's all zip tied. But that's essentially how it's done. It's a switch setup, but it's also an override with the factory, reverse wiring. And we'll get this put back together and show you how everything works, but it's almost a wrap. All right, here's what the switches look like. Monster lights, got the zombie lights. Customer wanted the fogs to be on the monster light switch. Those are the SS3 Max. And we got the zombie lights. Show you how that looks a little bit more. And we got a switch that says kill mode. Customer decided on all these switches. He got the rockers, set up the wiring as you guys saw. Kill mode, definitely an interesting setup there. It'll illuminate this light bar. It's the backup boost by Moroto. It is a reverse light bar system. But this switch overrides it, but it also has the ability to go off of the factory setup, which is the reverse light. So it'll work in conjunction with the reverse lights, but it'll also be activated on the switch. Okay. Here's what the lights off. You can see the boost bar is definitely the real deal. Such a small little bar, almost looks like a license plate, bracket or frame. They work really good. Nothing really comes close as far as a bulb replacement. Customer does have upgraded LED bulbs, but this will definitely provide some ample lighting. And customer uses the vehicle for different setups and stuff for work. So this will be nice at night. You throw on the switch and you have some illuminated work area essentially. All right, so let's get up close and personal with the boost bar. That's what it looks like. It's solid. Again, there's a hole drilled right here through a grommet, and then I siliconed it. Customer provided that color changing Ford badge. I set it up on red, and that way it's kind of street legal, but you can change it to white. I wouldn't advise running other colors on the street, but customers will do whatever they please, I suppose. But that's what the rear end looks like. Ran that wire from the front under the frame rail. The batteries on that side, I think I showed you guys earlier, ran it all the way to the rear and went right to that taillight as we saw before. So the rear end is done. Believe it or not, I've got over 10 hours on this installation alone. So many different moving parts, split up into 2 days, but I'll show you what the front end looks like. All right, here's the front end. Ignition is on. Remember, all these lights, everything that I installed here is switch ignition power source, okay? So you can't leave any of these lights on. These lights will automatically come on, these running lights. The backlighting for the pods and the Diodynamics halos will all run off the switch power source, as well as all of these switches internally. So you can't turn off the vehicle and forget to turn something off. It'll automatically shut off, okay? But I think everything came out awesome. Took a lot of spacing to get that light bar sitting right. The pods are as low as I can make it without fabbing up a custom bracket, which did not have the ability to do, but the light output is not impacted. The diodes are kind of in the perfect position. Cut out the sides with an ultrasonic to remove the those grill slats, and that gave proper performance. But this looks really good, definitely unique. I think it's got a look that obviously most Expeditions do not have. And we'll take a look at the setup. Okay. Now again, these are overriding. Okay, those are SS3 Max. They will override the factory fog light, and then the light bar has its own switch. Now, with that being said, turn on the low beams. This is G5 BRT with new CBB bulbs. When we turn on the high beam, the HB LED from Moroto turns on. We got that retrofitted down in the factory high beam, but the light bar also turns on automatically. So this is a completely practical, kind of seamless integration in the sense of you don't have to worry about anything. You can leave your lights on in auto and you can drive the vehicle however you'd like. And then if you turn on the fogs, the SS3 Max also turns on alongside of the factory fog lights, which have diodynamics bulbs in them. So we just have, I mean, literally monster output all around, you know. But yeah, this was a really cool build, really cool setup. This setup is a few years old, about 2.5 years old. Just put in the new bulbs. So anyway, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think about all this. It was a lot of work. Obviously, we're not going to agree with all of the choices the customer made. It's not for everybody. It's for the customer. Customer decided he wanted this stuff set up, but I think it's a badass setup. I mean, just take a look at it. You know, you got street legal fog light output. You know, the retrofit is set up properly. It's aligned. It's no compromise setup. It's a big money setup, but it is a legit setup. Anyway, let us know what you think. Subscribe to the channel, please. Let us know if you have any questions.